our Link to Feed Connect 2.11.0 webinar. In today's webinar, we'll be covering quite a few things, but let's just get started off with a little bit of intros. Once again, if you wouldn't mind taking the time to allow your name as well as your organization's name to be in your Zoom name, and that way we'll know exactly where you are from. Just a couple of housekeeping reminders here. This webinar will be recorded, and we'll make sure that you'll have access to that recording after the fact. So with that in mind, let's please keep yourselves muted to reduce the background noise for the sake of the recording. This is also a webinar that is going to demo the upcoming changes. This is not a true training. So we will answer questions as they are relevant to the changes. Near the end of the webinar, we will also give you some resources for those that do just want to get a little bit more information about some training opportunities as it relates to Connect and some other things as well. We do have some Link to Feed staff standing by in chats. So if you have questions, please do feel free to use the chat feature there to ask your question. If it is something that they feel is very relevant and in the now, they will let me know so that I can address it. Otherwise, they'll be answering questions during chat, and there will be a Q&A session at the end for any other questions. And then lastly, take a moment to say hello. Introduce yourself in chats. Tell everyone where you are, what city or province you're in. Also, what's your favorite morning beverage and how do you take that? I personally love a spiced chai in the morning, and sometimes I have that with vanilla or cinnamon. Tell me about yourself. Wonderful. I see some intros coming in here. Thank you guys so much for joining and for participating. We do encourage you to use the chats. I see Mike likes a Diet Coke in the morning. Please also feel free to use the reactions if you see something that you love or something that excites you, or maybe something that you've just been waiting for. We hope that this will be exciting, and I'm very excited to share with you the updates that we have with Connect. So once again, this is the webinar for the Connect 2.11.0 version. And this is going to be an improved user interface for the for the client self-enrollment tool. So today we're going to cover what is Connect. I'm sure that a lot of you that are participating today are already familiar with Connect, but we will give a brief overview to what Connect is. And then we'll also go through what the older version of that workflow looks like, as well as what the new settings are. After we go through the new settings, there will be three main questions that we'll answer. That will be, how can a new client register for Connect? How does an existing Link to Feed client register for Connect? And what if an existing Link to Feed client tries to create a new Connect account without their ID? Which this question may make a little bit more sense after we go through the settings and how those are changing. We'll then have a little bit of time to make any suggestions that you think might be helpful to other organizations as you're switching from the older version of Connect to the newer. And then we'll have Q&A. And of course, as promised, there will be some important dates and some resources for those that might be interested in a little bit more training. So let's go ahead and get started. What is Connect? Connect is a client self-enrollment tool where clients can create their own profiles and they can edit information in their profile. Clients also have the ability to schedule services and they can modify or cancel their appointments. So over here is just a little snapshot of what Connect looks like from the user's point of view once they have created an account. You do see book delivery here, and I want to let you know that this is one more exciting thing that will be coming soon, and you'll be getting communication about that soon. But you also, the client will also have the ability to book pickup. They'll also be able to view the upcoming services that they have, and they can update their account information and update their profile information. So this is a self-service tool that works in tandem with client intake as you know it. And next, we're going to do a brief demo on what client intake looks like from the Connect perspective or from the client's perspective. All right. So this is the first page of Connect. Every organization will have a URL that they will be able to share with their clients. Right now, I'm just on the testing server. So as we go through Connect from the client perspective, please keep in mind that you may see some fields that are either turned on or off that might be a little bit different than what you are used to seeing, and that's okay. That just means that we have fields configured one way and that you might have another. So when your clients first get to their Connect or to your Connect URL, you have the ability to put your logo here. And this is a sample text, but this will be a welcome message that you will be able to configure for your clients to see. So if there is important information or important instruction that you want them to have, this is the place where you will put that. One of the things that you'll notice about the newer version of Connect, if you are familiar with the older version, is that an existing client can simply put in their username and their password to gain access. No longer do they have to repeat that client identifiable information each time that they log in. For today's demo, though, we're going to show you what it looks like for a brand new client to log into Connect, and you'll be able to see what some of the changes look like. So if I am not an existing client, a username and password will not be my first step. I will instead go to create an account here. Next, it's going to ask me what my client ID is. Now, this is going to be a very important step if I am an existing client in Link to Feed and I simply want to create a Connect profile. This is the magical step that will eliminate a lot of client duplicates as it will help to sync the two profiles. But if I am a brand new client that has never visited a pantry, food bank, or other organization through Link to Feed, and I simply want to create an account, I will do that by bypassing this and clicking the I don't have this button here. So it's next going to ask me for some client identifiable information. This seems as though the beginning of my profile, and it is, although in addition to it being the beginning of me creating my profile, the system is also checking this information to make sure that it does not already exist anywhere in Link to Feed. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Date of birth. Now, when it comes to the email address and the phone number, only one of these two will be required, although the client does have the ability to complete both. If both of these fields are completed, the email address will become the client's username. If only one is completed, whichever they have completed will become their username. So for the sake of time and training, I won't put in a phone number, and this will become my username. I'll go ahead and submit here. And that takes me to the next page. So by seeing this page, this means that I am continuing to create my brand new client profile, but it also means that the system has not recognized this information anywhere in Link to Feed otherwise. So I'll go ahead and create a password. I'll also be able to consent to share this information. This is a required step that the client will have to take, and this information will pull directly from your account with the consent information that you have there. We also have the email address and text message consent to contact if that's something that the client wants to allow permission for, but of course it's not required. And I'll go ahead and submit. All right. And now we are into the largest part of the client intake process or the connect process. We've changed this user interface so that it will hopefully be more instinctual for the client to understand that we are asking for information in three basic categories. First, my information. And so this is going to be the primary client's information. Next will be other household members, where I can add as many household members as I need to complete their information as well. And then lastly is the general household information. And this is going to, as it states, be information for the entire household. We noticed some issues before where primary clients were mistakenly adding themselves as an additional household member. And we feel that this new user interface is going to decrease those instances of client duplicates. So we'll start off here by choosing the gender, the marital status, and the self-identifies as section. As we go through this process, you'll notice that we have these blue asterisks here that are very consistent with what you see in client intake. And this just lets me know that this is a required field. I can go down and continue the education and the employment type. So it should be clear to your client that the information that they put in this section is specifically for them as the primary client. Once they've completed the My Information section, they'll then move down to the Household Member section, where I can click Add, and I can add household members if I want to. Of course, this will not be a required field, as it is very possible that you would have a household member of one. I can click the Add button as many times as I need for the additional household members. And then lastly, we have the general household information. So this information is going to be completed based upon all of the members of the household, not just the primary or perhaps just a household member. As I am completing these fields, I do want to make sure that it is clear that you do have the ability to configure what fields show up. So moving down here a bit here, for instance, if you are not currently tracking your client's social program, this is not something that you have to have on this page. This is how it is configured at our site, but you would have the ability to configure it the way that you would need to. Oh, let me choose another address. It looks like I did not get an autofill on the zip code there. There we go. We also have the no fixed address for clients that might be unhoused or otherwise experiencing homelessness. And then we have the prefer not to answer as well. So I'll go ahead and breeze through the rest of this setup here. And the beauty here is that your client can now do this in the privacy of their own home. They might feel a little bit more comfortable and give you more information than they would otherwise. Because they don't have to communicate to a person across a computer. It's just simply them entering their information into perhaps their own mobile device or their own computer. So I can choose my monthly income amount. I can choose other sources of income. And then I can also choose expenses. You'll notice that the expense section is going to work quite similarly to the household member in that I can expand this to add an expense. Now, for the sake of time, I won't do it, but I'll be able to drop down and choose the type as well as the expense amount here. I'll go ahead and remove this for now, but adding an expense will deduct that expense from the client's household income and give you a true representation of what this client is taking home in income. So once all of the information on this page is completed, the client will be able to go to the review. And here, they'll be able to review everything that they have just entered on the previous pages. This is a new step, and this will hopefully eliminate any instances of incorrect data or perhaps any client duplicates as well. So the first thing I noticed here is that I have a section for household members. I have my primary client as well as the household member. There would be additional tiles for the rest of the household members. So if as a client, I have mistakenly added myself as a household member as well as the primary, I would be able to catch that here and touch the back button, which would take me to the previous page where I can make any necessary edits or perhaps delete that household member. I can also see any of my other client identifiable information and just review and make sure that these changes are what I want before moving forward. But since everything looks good here, I'm going to go ahead and save and next. Success. So just like that, a brand new client that has not been to your organization before was able to create their Connect profile. Because they have not been to your organization before, they will be given a client ID, and this will be the client ID that you would see when you logged into client intake. It also gives them their login here. So since they have a Connect profile, there are a few more actions now that they would be able to take. First, we do see book delivery here. This you will not see on your page just yet, nor will your clients, but this is something that is coming soon that we're very excited about, and you'll soon be getting more communication about our delivery package. We also have book pickup, and this of course would be what you're used to, where a client can come into the organization. And then we have the Return to Dashboard button here, which I'll touch now. And this will take you to the dashboard that we saw in the presentation, where it allows them to either book delivery, book their pickup, view upcoming services, update account information. Touching this would take you to the place where they can update their username and password, or they can update their profile information. And this will take them back to the page where they can see all of their information, and household member information. Let's go through the process of booking a pickup. So if I want to book a pickup as a client, I can choose the location. And of course, that would be up to you as an organization to decide what locations you want pickup available at. I can search, choose the date. And something else that might be new for you here is that you now have the ability to add provisions. Now, this is not required, it is optional, but if you want to give your clients the choice, they can now come in and select those options. If this is turned off, they will simply be scheduling an appointment without being able to choose their provisions. If it is turned on, there is a note here that allows you to let the client know, and make that a little bigger for everyone, let the client know that you may not be able to accommodate all of their requests, but they can at least suggest what they would like. And then there is also a note field here where the client can leave any notes that may be relevant to the visit before they book. That will take me back to this screen. Notice that this is a configurable message that you as the organization can create. So this is something that you would want to perhaps have a couple sections of. One, letting them know, thank you, you have successfully created your Connect account. Another one, letting them know what the next steps are if it is about appointment. And here I can see once again the login information and the client ID, but now I can also see the information for the appointment. When I return back to the dashboard here, I can now see my upcoming services. There it is, and I can either modify or cancel. One more thing I want to show you before we go back to the presentation and look at some of the specific changes that have been made. So if I log back into that same profile that I just created, noticing that I did not have to go and create a new account, I can simply do this now with my username and password, given that I've typed that in properly. Beautiful, and I did. It will take me right back to this page where I can either book a delivery when that feature is available, I can book a pickup, or I can return to the dashboard and simply come in and update my information if that may be the case. All right, so now that we have taken a look at what Connect is and what that looks like from the client perspective, let's take a deeper dive into the settings that have been fixed. So first, let's take a look at the first version of Connect. This is a little snapshot of what the login process looked like for all clients in the first version of Connect. It required the first name, last name, email address, or phone number, as well as the state of residence, regardless of whether this was a new or existing client. This has been updated so that returning clients only require their username and password to log in to Connect. Something else we've changed here is that Connect could potentially create a lot of client duplicates when their clients were creating their profiles for the first time in Connect. And what we've did here is require the link to feed ID. That means that if your client already exists in your link to feed account and they then want to go and create a Connect profile for themselves, they will be able to do that by putting in the client ID that you provide them with so that their new Connect account simply links them to their existing account as opposed to creating a client duplicate. And then lastly, this older version of Connect did require a user verification process. This is something that wasn't completed very often by the user. And so the new options no longer make this necessary because of what we've enabled with the client ID. So now let's talk about how you can make your Connect experience look like what we've just seen in demo here. So when you go to, and of course, this is something that you will need to be a network administrator to do, but when your network administrator goes into administration and then fields from the Connect application, there will be two settings here, and we'll want to make sure that these two settings are turned on. The first one is to enable the Connect version 2.11.0, and this is enabling the client ID. When you go into your account, there is also a link to that documentation so that you can see exactly what it is. We've also included it here in the last portion of the presentation. And then the secondary option here will only appear if the first option is selected, and that is to require new users that match the existing users to provide a link to feed ID. So these settings are a bit wordy and lengthy, but let's break it down and look at exactly what each one of these things do. So the first setting here is to enable Connect version 2.11.0. That's going to do a couple of different things. The first thing enabling this setting will do is change the older version of Connect, where all clients were required to put in so much identifiable information, to this new version, where existing clients can bypass all of this information by simply putting in their email address and their password. It also allows brand new users to create a new account. The other thing that this first setting does is require the client to put in their link to feed ID. So if this is a client that is your existing client, they will need to put in their client ID, which means that you have provided it to them before creating a new link to feed account. And of course, if this is a brand new client altogether, they can bypass this stage by putting in the I don't have this, which I've circled here for you. Next is our second setting. So this is the one that requires new users that match the existing user to provide a link to feed ID. And what that means is that if a client tries to bypass putting in their ID by saying, I don't have this, but they are in fact an existing user, there will be a message here that you will be able to configure, letting them know, hey, it looks like you visited our organization at least once. Please contact us so that we can provide you with that client ID, eliminating the instance of a client mistakenly creating a duplicate profile. All right. So let's talk a little bit about these questions. How can a new client register for Connect? So we saw what that looked like during our demo, but a client can register by Connect by first clicking the Create Account and then clicking the I do not have this button and going through the process of creating a new account. Next is how does an existing link to feed client register for Connect? They'll start off the same way by clicking on the Create Account button here, but this time they do not want to bypass the I don't have this. They'll simply want to put in their client ID. If they do not have their client ID, that is when you as an organization will want to utilize the verbiage here, letting them know that they can contact you to retrieve their user ID so that they do not create a duplicate. If they did, choose the I don't have this anyway, and they are an existing client, it will let them know rather than creating a client duplicate when these settings are turned on. And then lastly, what if an existing link to feed client tries to create a new Connect account without their ID? That's the big scary one, right? We don't want clients to, unbeknownst to them, create a brand new account and then we end up with a client duplicate. Well, we've got you covered there. So as we saw in the demo, even if they get all the way to the I don't have this, once they put in their first name, last name, date of birth, and either email address or phone number, the system is going to look and find that they exist. This, once again, is a configurable message where you will be able to tell them, hey, it looks like you have visited us, or perhaps more likely, you visited someone else in our network. Please call this number. We'll help you out with your user ID so that you can log in. All right, and next we have some suggestions for you. So all link to feed accounts utilizing Connect will remain in the first version. This is not something that we are going to automatically switch you to the new version in settings. So as referenced on slide 6, those settings will have to be turned on by you in order for you to see the new version. What that means is that you have time to prepare, to train your staff, and make sure that your clients know their user ID before switching on the new settings. So although we do strongly recommend that you use that Connect version 2, it is going to be the best practice to ensure that your clients know their link to feed ID before making the switch. If you went and switched it on the day that it started, if you are an organization where your clients have that link to feed ID, then that's probably going to be just fine for you. But if you're not in the practice of sharing that link to feed ID, and perhaps you call it something different, maybe your clients know it as a customer ID, or user number or client number, whatever the case is, you can actually configure what that looks like from your client's perspective. You just want to make sure that you have done the work to make sure that the clients know what that number is. So the first thing that we recommend is setting a time frame in which your organization plans to communicate the link to feed IDs to the majority of your existing clients. So that might look like you saying, our clients generally visit once a week. So after a month's time, we should have communicated to the majority of our clients. That's something that you can kind of determine what's going to be best for your organization. You also want to train your intake workers to share the link to feed ID with all of their new clients upon completing the intake process. So that means when I am a brand new client and I come into your organization, I have completed my profile, but you will then let me know what my client ID is so that I can go home in my own time and create my Connect profile. Something that we recommend is perhaps printing off a card that contains your organization's Connect URL. If you want to get fancy with it, you can even do a QR code that will take them right there. But also leaving a little space on that card where you can write in your client's ID. So at this time, I would like to open it up for discussions. What has worked for you? Feel free to share in chats what strategies or campaign methods your organization has used to share your link to feed ID with your clients. And I'll give everyone a few moments to type. So it looks like someone had a business card size client ID. Clients love them. Wonderful. All right, so some of the agency partners use the barcode feature, and you sent the user ID number with the barcode. Wonderful. Printed laminated cards and handed out clients with the barcode on their ID. Great. So lots of ways to get that there. Feel free to continue to share in chats if you have something that you feel is going to be helpful. But the bottom line is these new features or these new settings that we have enabled are going to truly optimize your data integrity as well as your client duplicate situation. So we do highly recommend that you turn them on, but we also want to make sure that you position yourself for the smoothest transition. And so take some time to talk amongst yourselves within your organization to determine what that looks like for you. How can you spread the word about Connect? And how can you make certain that your clients know their link to feed ID? And lastly, I would like to open it up for questions. So at this time, if you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourself. Also, do take a look in the chats to make sure that your question may have, or maybe it hasn't been answered in chats already. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mika, I'm just going to repeat a few that were popped into the chat that Craig and I did answer, but just might be useful for the whole group to hear out loud. So one question I think might worry some people is will every existing client have to re-register?
Sure. No, every new client will not have to re-register. If you already have a Connect profile and you already have a user ID and password, once these settings are put into place, you'll simply just need to put in your user ID and your password. What that means for any existing Connect clients is that no longer will they have to put in their first name, last name, date of birth, state of residency, and either email address or phone number. They won't have to re-register. They'll just simply be able to log in with the information that they've already had.
Perfect. And then the next question, I think you kind of just answered there too. What's the use case for when they need to enter their link to feed ID?
The use case for entering their link to feed ID is going to be for a new profile. So if I have gone to the food bank for the very first time or any other organization for the very first time, um, you have helped me through the client intake process there. Now, when I go home and I want to create this profile because maybe I'm very interested in scheduling or requesting my pickup, once I do that, it's going to ask me for my link to feed ID at that time. It wants to make sure that as I create my brand new Connect profile, it recognizes that information to what happened in client intake at the organization. So that's really the only use case for needing your link to feed ID, as existing users will not need that. And if I am a client who has never been to the organization and I am signing up for the first time through Connect, of course, it won't require that I have a user ID, but it will tell me what that ID is at the end of the process.
And we did have a couple questions around will Connect have language options?
Yes. So let me go back and share the screen with you really quickly. Oops. In the upper right-hand corner, when you are logging into Connect, it is powered by Google Translate. And so there are two things that you can do. The client will be able to select the language that they want and see the Connect in their preferred language. But also, as you configure your site, if you are putting a blurb in there, either whether it's the welcome message or whether it's just the username or whatever it is, you can opt to put that into languages. If you know that there is a very common second language spoken, perhaps you can do name slash nombre so that that is there for your client.
And then Kari just put in the chat, is there a way to collect household members' income in Connect in addition to the primary member's income?
No, the household income is going to be for the primary or for the household. If that is information that you're interested in collecting, that would probably be best served to do in client intake.
Great. That's all the questions I have. Does anybody else have additional questions they want to pop into the chat?
All right, so we'll just take a few moments to give you some resources here. And let me kind of pause the music for a moment just to make sure everyone can hear. Okay, so what is next? Everyone should have received the original communication. If you're looking for it, it did go out on Monday, March 14th. And that was just letting you know everything that is going to be happening with Connect. Next, you have the updates. So the updates will be pushed to the test site on Monday, March 28th. So once again, that is not going to affect anything that you are doing unless you decide to go in and enable those two settings that we talked about today. You'll be able to do that on the test site on Monday, March 28th, and you'll be able to do that on the live site on Monday, April 11th.
Charging battery.
Once again, this will be sent out to everyone, so you'll be able to click on these live links here. But the next premium case management webinar, also hosted by me, will be on Tuesday, April 26th. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about Connect, how do I configure it? What does that look like for me as a network admin? Then this is going to be the place for you, and I'll make sure that everyone has the ability to sign up. Next, you can review the 2022 product release and launch roadmaps by clicking on this link here. we'll make sure that you have that available. So that is going to show you all of the future rollouts. I'm sure that some of you also joined our latest webinar prior to this one, which was reports. So we are working very hard on listening to your feedback and providing you with what it is that you need. And then lastly, if you want to see more updates and just more details about the Connect 2.11.0 rollout, this last link is going to be for you.
I did have another question pop in the chat here, Mika, from Becky. They know we can opt when to set this on, but it sounds like they need to type in some of that verbiage before turning it on.
That is correct. Yep, that's going to live on the same place as the settings. So when you are going into Connect as the network admin, you'll want to go to Administration and then Fields. At the very top of that page is where you'll see the settings that you can toggle on, and beneath that is where you'll see a lot of things that you can configure. Number one will be what fields do you want turned on, or what questions do you actually want to ask your client. Number two is going to be what language or what verbiage do you want to use around the fields? Those will be sort of the simple ones like name, email address, so on and so forth. Some organizations just put name. Some make it a little bit more conversational. Please tell us your first name. So you'll be able to configure that. And then lastly, there will be a section for messages and disclaimers. And that's the section where you're going to be able to put in specific verbiage around, hey, it looks like you've already come to our organization once. Please contact us so that we can provide you with your user ID. Or congratulations, you've just created a Connect account. Here are the next steps that you can take. So all of that will be in Connect, and then administration, and then fields. And you'll be able to also see what your URL is so that you can go in, as I've gone today, from the client's perspective and see exactly what it looks like before you share that URL with your clients.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions that we can answer?
Is there a way to turn a question on in Connect but not make it required?
Yes. So the required fields are going to match what you have in client intake. So the questions that are 100% going to be required no matter what are those fields that are always required in client intake, of course, that being first name, last name, date of birth, and address. Regarding the other fields, you will be able to turn them on or off in Connect, and the required portion of it will match what you have in your link to feed settings otherwise.
I think that's all we have for questions right now.
Excellent. So once again, we will make sure that you receive the recording of today's webinar. So you'll have all of these important dates. You'll also have a link to the user manual, which has been updated for both the current version and the new version that is coming. So you'll be able to get a closer look at that. And you'll have all of the resources of the video as well as the slide. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I'm so glad that I was able to answer your questions. We're very excited about this new version. We feel that it'll be a much smoother experience, not just for you, but also for your clients. So thank you so much for coming.